And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Hello, I'm National Weather Service meteorologist Peter Chan with your Alaska aviation weather outlook on this Sunday, September 29th, 2024. And this outlook will be for Monday into Tuesday. And of note, we're going to have a very powerful low come up out of the North Pacific up into the lower Gulf. This system will reach a central pressure down near just above 950 millibars. But it's the wind field around this low that's going to have some of the greatest impact. We'll have a occluded front that's very wrapped up, and it'll be pushing into areas of the Panhandle as we go through, especially Monday afternoon into Monday night and Tuesday morning, producing high winds. There is a high wind warning in effect for Prince of Wales Island, where gusts could be as high as 60, 70 miles an hour. And there is a high wind watch all along the outer coast of the Panhandle up through Yakutat Bay, where winds could gust upwards of 60 miles an hour, and along some of the higher ridge lines, there's the potential some gusts near hurricane force. Hurricane force is at 75 miles an hour, so we are anticipating out over the lower central Gulf into maybe Dixon Entrance. There's going to be a lot of potential for some low-level wind shear as well as that front lifts up across at least southern parts of the Panhandle as we go into Monday evening, Monday night. Elsewhere in the state, we have MVFR conditions along the Gulf Coast, the southwest, up along the west coast, Arctic coast. You see the hints of IFR as the low is here. It's going to be lifting off toward the northeast. And by Monday afternoon, widespread IFR conditions anticipated across areas offshore there of the Gulf Coast, pushing up along the western, southwestern areas of the Panhandle, just off of Sitka and there off of Craig. But to the west, there's another low coming in out of the western bearing that with a frontal system out into the central Aleutians. This system will not be as strong, the energy from that heading southeastward across the Bering Sea. Come Tuesday morning, look at how wrapped up, you can see the IFR conditions wrapped up around this low a couple of times. We have the occluded front, even the potential for some thunder and lightning because there's a lot of lift dynamics with this system. Potentially Tuesday morning there along areas of the southwest coast toward Haida Gwaii and Dixon Entrance. We have MVFR conditions Tuesday morning along much of the west and southwest coast, including the Alaska Peninsula. And then even into Tuesday afternoon with this low, we find the potential for some flashes of lightning and rumbles of thunder associated near the center and along the front that's going to be wrapped up there as it works its way eastward toward the south end of the Panhandle and Dixon Entrance. Elsewhere across the Chukchi Sea, Bering Strait, we find MVFR conditions very prevalent in through the southwest, then trailing out along the Alaska Peninsula and back through the Aleutians. So Anaktuvuk Pass will see VFR conditions, and that'll be the case at Adigan Pass there in the east central Brooks Range as we drop south. Lake Clark and Merrill may see MVFR conditions early Monday, giving way to VFR conditions as more of a northerly northeast north flow develops across the southern south central areas of the mainland. Rainy Pass, VFR, we're looking at VFR all the way across the rest of the Alaska Range. Windy Pass, Isabel, and Mentasta. As we drop on down through the Copper River Basin, VFR conditions. And then Portage Pass may see some MVFR conditions become, though, VFR, again, northeast to north winds as that low bottoms out near 950 millibars right along the lower central Gulf, North Pacific interface before it begins to head northeastward toward Dixon Entrance. Chilkoot and White will see MVFR conditions early Monday give way to VFR conditions. Will be pretty sharp cutoff along the cloud shield and precipitation shield there in the Panhandle and along the Gulf Coast. Areas like, right now it's looking like the Kenai Peninsula should be spared the highest winds or any of the significant precipitation, but areas of the Panhandle will see some moderate to locally heavier rainfall, especially here in the southern parts of the Panhandle. So looking at the freezing levels, Monday morning, the surface freezing line coming down into the interior along the mountains all the way down here in the southeast portions of the interior of the mainland. But more importantly, you can see where this low pressure is. we find higher freezing levels aloft that rise significantly above 10 and 12,000 feet over the North Pacific south of the Gulf. We're going to have a very wrapped up, occluded front out ahead of that. And so the icing potential, where there is precipitation, we will find icing potentially above 8,000 feet in the lower Gulf. Along the Gulf Coast, if any precipitation makes up along the immediate Gulf Coast or into the intercoastal mountains of the Panhandle, above 4,000 feet. And then with that other system out here to the west, there's low pressure here in the western portion of the Bering Sea, and then we have above 6,000 feet here across the western into central Aleutians expected during the day on Monday. So here is the jet stream pattern, 30,000 feet aloft, roughly 300 millibars. We have a jet core to 170 knots that's helping to create the lift over this region to deepen that area of low pressure. Behind me, out here over the western and southwest part of the Bering Sea, a jet max of 135 knots. As I step away, though, this is impressive. At 9,000 feet, 700 millibars, look at this broad circulation of mid-level winds, anywhere from 50 to as high as a core of 90-knot winds at 9,000 feet there, just south of the Gulf, in through the northern part of the North Pacific. We find the low circulation nudging up into the lower portion of the Gulf. And look at this, at 3,000 feet, we have winds, hurricane force, at 65 knots is hurricane force winds, and we have winds as high as 80 and 90 knots with a core of strongest winds just southeast of the low center. So when we bring this down to the surface and look at turbulence considerations, along the Gulf, we're anticipating at the very least the immediate Gulf Coast moderate turbulence likely. Surface to 4,000 feet along the Gulf Coast, surface to 6,000 feet out over the open waters of the Gulf. There will be storm force winds with gusts to near hurricane force. So we expect, especially here up into the southern parts of the Panhandle, Haida Gwaii, Dixon entrance, surface to 6,000 feet. We're looking for severe turbulence and a potential for low-level wind shear. And then back out to the west here, we find with that other system in front the potential for moderate turbulence across areas of the central and central and western Aleutians, surface to 3,000 feet. But by far, the greatest threat of moderate to severe turbulence will be out over the Gulf. The further out you get here into the open waters and along areas, especially from around Sitka on in through Prince of Wales Island, that potential there for severe turbulence and low-level wind shear.